Welcome to today's super duper special episode, although condensed episode 7 of Nerds and Hip Hop. This podcast is about the intersection of hip hop and nerd life. Nighthawk, De La Soul, Psycho Pass, Lauryn Hill are all fair game, and if you know any of these names, welcome.
There are 4 main parts. We first review our weeks in nerddom and hip hop done. Then we explore a theme through our hip hop and nerd influences. At the end, we ask ourselves a question and open up to answer your questions.
And this week is special. My name is The Wolf's Den.
I'm Victoria, aka Miss Old School.
And we are here with our very, very first guest, the legendary Mikhael Simmonds. Could you tell us a little bit about yourselves before we jump any further? Give the people what they need to know about you.
Yeah, firstly, I'm not legendary. I'm not a legend. I like dairy though, so that might count for something.
Something.
But yeah, I'm right now in New York, so if you hear sirens and gunshots and random people rapping, that's about right.
It's just a soundtrack of New York.
Yeah, that's about it.
You should also tell them a little bit of your academic life, because I think that's going to contribute when we go into our week in review.
Okay. So I am a journalist, international multimedia journalist, photographer, blah, 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 blah. I guess my interest would be international affairs, things of that nature, and everything that comes underneath that. I'm Trinidadian by nationality, so tree to the bone, so called it. And yeah, that's about it.
And Wakandan by heart.
Yeah, apparently I'm Wakandan by heart, also I've been told. So yeah, I've just been a Wakandan ambassador for the day.
Yes, and I think that's going to be our transition. Unlike most weeks when we do Nerds and Hip Hop, everyone's going to go talk about their weeks in nerddom. We have a little bit something different. We've been trying to plan this Black Panther episode for a while, and we're here. We're all in slightly different parts. You got to but you got to issue 5. You finished issue 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have only gotten to, at the end, we only finished issue 4 because those what came with our trades.
Right.
Yeah, and issue 6 came out, and I was just too busy, adulting this week to actually read it.
Yeah, and because of everybody else's adulting, we didn't get to do much other nerd stuff.
Right.
To make this bigger, and time is not on our side today. So I want to just go into it. What were all of you guys really expecting going into Black Panther for this run by Ta-Nehisi Coates?
For me, I thought it was going to be, I don't know, I guess I expected more superhero, more action stuff, because, coming out from the movie, it's like, all right, Black Panther, I'm hyped, we've seen him with the claws, so I was kind of surprised and not surprised by how much it's spending on kind of the government issues and kind of that whole thing, like behind the scenes, the political climate kind of Black Panther. But then again, knowing who Ta-Nehisi Coates is and reading all of his work with The Atlantic and everything else in his book, it makes sense that why he would go that route instead, because obviously writes a lot about, the political climate of the United States and etc. So,
right.
Yeah.
And what about you, Mikhael? Did it kind of meet your expectations? Not in terms of quality, but in terms of what you were just expecting to get out of it?
Well, that's the thing. So I started reading it as soon as it came out. And when I knew Ta-Nehisi Coates was going to be the writer, at first I was kind of skeptical. Only because Black Panther, at least when it comes to comic books, has been somewhat Pan-African in his view. And I was afraid that Ta-Nehisi Coates would have done an African-American kind of point of view, which is slightly different, especially when you read and think of the juxtaposition between Luke Cage and Storm and Black Panther and all these superheroes and where their worldview. But reading it, I see that, it's in good hands. He's definitely taking the bigger view, taking the world view in a sense. It's not U.S., it's a different place. And like what I said, it's much more on the politics of it, the sociology of it, the economics of it, the culture of it. And those are topics I actually really like. So I can imagine some people going in wanting to see action. And a lot more action comes in when you start reading book 5 and going to book 6. But to me, I loved it. I just love understanding the intricacies of what this country is, because generally, like when you think of Wakanda, what Wakanda's represented over the years was this idea of like black excellence. Usually, be twice as good as someone else,
Right.
kind of thing. And it's kind of perfection. Like Oprah could do no wrong, Denzel Washington could do no wrong. And what this comic has done is say, all right, what does it mean when you are perfect? Like, at least perfect to the world. What does it mean on the inside? What are your internal demons? What are you deeming? And in Wakanda's case, what are your internal demons as a country? And Black Panther's case, what are your internal demons as a person, right?
Right.
Anyway, that's why I really liked that. It was something I did not know I wanted. And when I saw it, I realized, yeah, I wanted this. Come on.
There are two pieces I actually want to pick up on what you said. I think going into this comic, what's funny is I remember you and I had a conversation about comics probably like 5-6 years ago, where you talked about the year where you read the original Civil War, and you kind of gave me a little bit about Black Panther that time. And that kind of influenced what I was kind of expecting in terms of, similar as you talk about black excellence and so forth. And one of the things that, from an outsider's perspective, as I've been getting into comics, Black Panther represents a lot to us because of, as you said, black excellence, but it is very much from a Western-centric view, and I went into the comic almost expecting that. And I'm glad that I didn't get that.
Exactly.
It's interesting. I was gonna say it's interesting that you guys are saying that, because I just realized I'm probably the closest thing to an African American in this conversation. Being second generation, and then my dad's just African American, and I didn't think of that at all. So now it's really interesting, like hearing you guys, like that's the first thing you guys thought about, and I was just like, I'm gonna read this Black Panther book because it's Black Panther.
That's interesting.
And that's what drew me to him even before this comic, right? It was me being a kid living between two countries, being taught growing up in Trinidad about as in black identity as an international statement.
Yes.
And running across Black Panther and having another entity, another fictional character that's looking at representing black identity as an international statement. And then saying, oh, that's why I like you. I like you, one of many reasons. I was like, okay, that's why I attached the comic or the character. Everyone can attach many things to a character. It doesn't mean anyone is right or wrong. It's just what you get out of it. You can look at one character and you can have 10 different angles to attach yourself to. Right.
And the other thing I wanted to pull out, as we kind of get more into the heart of the comic, you mentioned that the demons that T'Challa is dealing with himself, and I think the biggest demon that he's dealing with is his view of the people back home, knowing that on an international scale he is revered and valued, but at home he's considered a failure, and how that plays out into the way that he views his people. I think either the third or fourth issue where he was describing that there's no question that even the people recognize the responsibility that he looks at his job with. Like, even though they're disappointed of him, I think people recognize the weight that he takes his job with. But his mother says something that I never really thought of before, is that he views his people as a burden. Like, this job for him is more of a burden than anything else. Like, he talks about sacrifice, he talks about these things, and in a certain sense, he's done that. And it's clear that what his intentions are as he's trying to rebuild this country. But I never would have thought that the people would have would have realized that they're a burden onto him, and what that means for why people would want to create their own factions, and seeing that pan out.
But that makes perfect sense. Look at this country today, whatever political side you stand on, you see people wanting to do great things, individuals wanting to do great things, or small groups wanting to do great things, and they're slowed down by the general population, right?
Right.
The only, Obama has all his policies, and his view would be people are slowing him down to doing stuff he really needs to do, right? Mm-hmm. It's a burden. This thing with T'Challa is that he's a king, right? He wasn't voted into office, so he kind of didn't really have a choice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to take into consideration his personality, which is something that was not really explored in any other comic before. Again, every other comic they explore him as being the exceptional black guy. He's awesome tactician, super smart, super rich, usually on top of the board for almost anything. And if something catches him off guard, second round he's on top of it. But when you think of someone who really doesn't care too much about being the king, right? He's always more interested in science and traveling. He's the ultimate. He's traveling the universe.
Right.
Like, he clearly has two options: run a country or travel the universe. He clearly thinks traveling the universe is more fun. You know?
I mean, I wouldn't. I want to travel. I said, who wouldn't?
Yeah, right, exactly. So, I mean, that's his personality, isn't it? So imagine your personality is, I want to go and explore the universe with all these cool people, like pushing my own scientific knowledge and learning stuff, but I'm burdened by people who just can't think outside of themselves. So I think it makes sense and it really adds texture to who he is. And you could apply to many other people as well, even in your own life if you have these greater goals.
Right. In fact, that talk about his personality, because I didn't necessarily pick up a lot on his personality in terms of outside of his feeling of obligation throughout, but that's a very interesting point. When you were talking about the views of, like, what does it mean for him to be, like, this super philosophical, thoughtful person and being able to satisfy curiosity versus this kind of practical taking care of home, they talk about his name is Changmire, the tutor to his mother. Mm-hmm. And very much... Go ahead.
No, I just said Rastaman taking over.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Take a minute and appreciate the diversity of black people in this comic.
They really did. I have to applaud them for all the different hairstyles I've seen, because I was just like, ooh, that's cute.
It's like a magazine from the 1990s. They're like killing the game right now.
Basically. Comic book version.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be sponsored by Kansu Butter, I think. I don't know.
If you ever ran out of ideas for cosplay as black folk, you could just pick anybody here.
Yep.
Yeah, basically. You got John Knox, you have like 3 different options.
Right. I mean, so with Shagmire, the interesting thing was that that was the same question about he has this value of intellectualism. In fact, this is kind of why although you and I kind of differ, I thought this was more of a third world discussion, because Changmire talks about preparing people to think in a certain way, but not preparing them to think for revolution. And it's like, as an excellent country we only want people to go so far because we want to keep them under control. As for Changmire, his perspective was like, that's not the point. And I forgot what the mother said, that Changmire never really understood about the people.
You need inspiration.
Right.
What you're saying. Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of curious for you, is like you had said that that's when, as we talked about going into Black Panther from like expecting an African American point of view, Changmire specifically feels like a discussion that's more so catered to, as I said, third world countries, because I think issues of inspiration or value of knowledge, or I don't think those are as big questions here in the States, but maybe I'm a little bit out of base. So, like, what were you thinking, or what do you think, Victoria, as well?
I'll let Mikhael go. I feel like I have a little less thought process of like a third world or developing country perspective. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I thought about it, and again, I'm also a foreigner, so I could be totally wrong on this, but at least being a journalist, I get to be in different social circles, right, outside of my own bubble of New York, intellectuals, blah, blah, blah. I get to talk to people outside my bubble. So when I hear all these discussions, because it's not just a discussion with the advisor, it's a discussion with the professor, with the mother, with the security, with the Secret Service, like all this is happening within this comic, right? This is one of the comic. And all these I see happening in different circles in different ways, right? Because the underlying question is, you have a country to run, what direction do you want a country to go? And what are you willing to do to get there? Right?
Right.
And that's not a developing world question, that's not a developed world question, that's a world question overall. You get that on country scales, on country.
Right.
Another way. It's totally practical. Even when you ask about revolution, people in this country, in the United States, want things to change. They want better jobs. They want better health care. They want housing. Want more freedom. They want to be able to discriminate against certain people. Whatever line you are on the political spectrum, you want that change. But just like that professor said, no one is prepared for revolution, right? And the government says we are open for discussion about anything. But when the government says no, they have to be open to the reaction of the people. And we see that from everything from Black Lives Matter to the Tea Party, the government or the institution government says no, and a group of people says, we're not going to take no. Right,
Yeah, well.
and that's what happens when you have a free society, one, and on some level an educated society, or the other. Educated society could be arguable, but that's a totally different discussion for a totally different day.
Okay. So I'm thinking we should probably switch gears into our hip hop done before we get into a entire podcast on Black Panther. Even though that would be awesome.
We're gonna. I want to just throw this out there. If you're a fan of this, Mikhael, would you be willing to come back when the next trade of Black Panther comes out with that stuff?
Oh yeah, sure. And I could talk about other random stuff, but yeah. But
Yeah.
you should really cut the comic book. It's pretty cool. It's awesome. In the 5th and 6th comic books, Black Panther calls in the crew, and you realize how deep his squad is.
Right, and you talk a little bit about the squad later because of our theme. But before we get there, I think we all have a little bit of a hip-hop week, thankfully, separately.
A little bit.
So I'll let you go first, Miss
Yeah.
Old School.
Yay. So I didn't listen to something old school this week. I've been listening to No Name's Project Telephone for the past, I guess, about 2-3 weeks. And I love it. It's weird in that at parts of it, her rhyme style is so odd. Because she doesn't always rap to the beat. And she kind of throws in these random little, like, tidbits. Like, it's almost like she's just, like, a stream of consciousness.
Okay.
But it's cool because it's so relatable at the same time. Like, she'll just be, like, talking about, like, different things that happen. Like, when the lights were off, we have to go to our cousin's house. But then, like, later on, she's like, I wish I was a kid again.
Right.
And it's just, like, it's instantly you feel nostalgic and, like, it relates. And I don't know. It's just great. It's a great piece. Body of work.
No, I've heard bits and pieces of that project. I enjoyed the project a lot. That song, I think, Diddy Bop is where you talk about, like, the streetlights and remembering being a kid a lot of it.
It's just a funny name for a song, too, but yeah.
I think the cool thing about that project is that I think for anybody who's enjoyed Chance's progression and sound recently, I would argue based on, like, even just listening more both to that project and Coloring Book,
You'd be really happy.
I think this has a little bit, I think there's a little bit more to kind of appreciate from what she did than there is to appreciating Coloring Book personally, in terms of, like, rhyme style and what she talks about.
I could agree with that. I feel like she does expand a little bit more than Coloring Book did. But they both do kind of have the same theme of, like, joy. I think we talked about that last time, how it's just super joyful. Right. But even with this, like, it kind of gives the illusion or, like, the appeal of joy. But then when you get into the lyrics sometimes, it's like, oh, what was that? What was that? It's
right. There's a little bit more
of darkness. Yeah, somber.
There's a somberness. If you look at the cover, there's a skull on the cover as she's sitting under it. So it's like, that there's going to be... that's usually, like, more of, like, a memento mori type of, which is, like, remember me thing. So she's still talking about issues of death and so forth, but there is this kind of underlying joy or something along those lines embedded in that.
Because even along with the skull, it's like a pastel cover with flowers and this purple background. So it's really pretty, but also, like, kind of dark.
Right.
All right. So, yeah. How about you, Mikhael? Well, how's your week in hip-hop like?
My week in hip-hop was kind of weird. One of my interns, she's not a hip-hop or rap fan by any means. And, which is fine, you know everyone's perfect.
Right.
So I can't remember how the discussion started, but I had to explain to her the genius of Jay-Z, or the skill of Jay-Z, and all his ghostwriters. Hey, I'm just saying, just letting it out there. I don't know how he rolls. So it actually starts off with talking about the song Brooklyn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn Go Hard. We got into it because we talked about songs about Brooklyn, and then I was like, yo, Jay-Z's Brooklyn Go Hard is actually an awesome song. Mm-hmm. And I guess my really hip-hop thing this week was me explaining the double or triple or quadruple entendre with his line in the second verse when he says, basically he's talking about Jackie Robinson. And he says, I father, I Brooklyn Dodger them. I jack, I rob, I sin. All man, I'm Jackie Robinson. So when I run the base, I dodge the pen.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like so much within there, right? There's so much the illusion of Jackie Robinson, his relationship with Brooklyn Dodgers, him being the first black baseball in major leagues, his link with Jackie Robinson and I jack, I rob, I sin. Talk about him, how Jackie Robinson stole bases, how Jay-Z dodged the pen and he mostly kind of freestyles while he's writing his stuff instead of writing first.
Right.
There's a lot of back and forth within those 4 lines at all, and this is not the entire story. This is just him playing around with these 4 lines. I think I fathered them. I being like one of the fathers of hip hop in Brooklyn, which is arguable because everything's arguable in rap. But yeah, so we got into that, and that was my hip hop example for the week, and we started talking about Empire State of Mind, and also I don't know if you have to bleed this, but Niggas in Paris with him and Kanye West, and how most rap songs that talk about flossing, just about gold and cars and all that stuff, which is fun. They're usually one-dimensional or two-dimensional. One-dimensional being, this is what I want, and two-dimensional being, I do not have this, this is what I want. But the song Niggas in Paris actually has a third dimension, and that's the African-American mythos of France, of what Paris means. You see that from Du Bois all the way up to even Ta-Nehisi Coates, the writer of Black Panther, now wanting to move to France or wanting to move to Paris. And it's the idea of you're going to a place where your blackness is not held against you, where, yes, you're rich, that's it, I could just live my life, kind of thing. And it's an artistic hub. And a lot of that in sports is really perception, right? Because we all know, if you read about France and its racism and Paris and all that stuff, it does exist there, but it's really as that long history of American artists, African-American artists, African-American intellectuals wanting to go to France, specifically Europe, to live or study or experience. So that song, which just people sing in the club, actually has an extra layer on top of that, which is kind of pretty cool if you want to write a hip-hop thesis about something. But that's my hip-hop nerdiness for the week.
Did she walk out of that conversation with a different appreciation?
I'm wondering that too.
She did. I mean, she definitely did. She's also not American. She's actually from South Africa. So just like how yourself and myself, we are immigrants to this country, and we have a certain worldview that's influenced both by being here for almost a decade,
right,
and up in different parts of the world. She's only been here for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
The worldview has been different as well. Also not knowing that African-American tie-in. But in the same breath, too, a lot of people singing that song don't know that tie-in as well, right?
Right. There's no question about that. I would, without going off the deep end, I would say I remember the first time that someone broke down Jay-Z lyrics to me. Is my friend Matthew, his mother. We were in his car, it's like 04, 05, and she sat down and broke down, what's the name of I forgot the name of the track. It was I think it was 99 Problems, and we were like, wait. There's that layer playing to it. So as much as I've been a person who used to hate Jay-Z.
Used to.
Yeah, my hate is not as strong as it used to be. I've had to grow to appreciate the way that he writes and the layers that he does. Because it's like, as a commercial person, he will give you a commercial understanding of a song, and then when he wants to, he doesn't always do this, when he wants to, there will be multi-layers to it, so you can walk out with that song in multiple ways. I remember the first time I heard I Know, which I don't know if you remember off American Gangster, where if you listen to the song, you think it's a love song. However, and the video pitches it, I think, closer in that way. But given the context of American Gangster, you know it's his relationship with cocaine and drugs. So it's like it's a whole different thing, and there are enough details in the song for you to pick that out. But if you're not paying close enough attention, you just get the one-dimensional play, and it's harder to read. Like, I think hip hop can be harder to read in that sense sometimes.
It's kind of like the Tupac's "Me and My Girlfriend" kind of thing, where he's talking about him and his gun, but it's also posed kind of as a thing with like a relationship. So yeah, it just reminded me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Jay-Z is one of those people. I think even if you don't like him, you have to respect his skill.
Yes.
Is that someone I guess that's why I really like Jay-Z, but it's someone I think you could honestly say he's not my cup of tea, but he's talented at what he does.
Yes.
Definitely.
And I think those two songs I used as an example, was the best example of the best of Jay-Z, or just some of the best of Jay-Z. I could probably count on 10 of the songs that do a better job, or equally as good job.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in his discography to allow us to do that. That's just fascinating to be able to do that. I've had people who I've tried to like translate hip hop over to, but there's such a, I don't want to call it like a hip hop literacy, but there's something like that to have. Mm-hmm. Like my week in hip hopdom has been kind of my hype over the Pokemon Cypher. I don't know if if you've heard about that, but Pokemon YouTuber Shofu did a cypher essentially with a bunch of different Pokemon YouTubers. It was like a 20-minute, and their usual game plan is to try to come up with the most creative Pokemon punchlines. And a lot of these guys can do very generic stuff, and for people who are more Pokemon fans and hip-hop fans, reading into the lyrics can only be looked at in very simple dimensions. And
there goes those classic New York sounds.
Classic.
Told you I'm in New York.
Yeah.
We believe you now.
We believe you now entirely. But in the song, one of the guys pulled off like double, triple entendres where he was talking about like the Pokemon metagame, and then he connected that to like basketball at the same time. And it was just very fascinating because it's only, like, there's a certain level of, like, hip-hop lyricism that you need to be able to have to recognize a double entendre. Mm. And then there's a Pokemon literacy that you have to kind of realize what he's getting at. And then there's a basketball literacy on top of that. And he's just stacking it. If I remember the line, it was like, "Don't let me polish the rock like I'm Mr. Orlando, or I'll sweep you like I'm Mr. White." Which, essentially, in the Pokemon metagame, rock polish is a move that you do so you can move faster than the other player, if you're a rock type. The classic Pokemon to do that was with Landorus. And then, if you're able to do it fast enough, you can sweep a team, which means that you get, with one Pokemon, you get rid of the rest of the team. Don't let me polish the rock, making the reference of a rock and a basketball. Orlando Magic. Right. Mr. Dwight, instead of saying Mr. White, it sounds like Mr. Dwight, so it's a Dwight Howard reference, and sounds like you're sweeping the basketball team. Like, there are times where, like, the creativity to understand lyrics is really special.
Levels on levels on levels. So, the theme of this week is, since we have our very first guest, we basically thought what better way to be than guests.
Trying to remember, like, what is your favorite moments, even, like, in Nerddom about special guests showing up. And I'm actually about to change what I originally had. I'm going to just say, the first time we saw Solid Snake pop out of the box in Super Smash Bros. Brawl trailer in, like, 06? No, 06 or 07. When we saw that trailer, yeah, it was great, because you have the classic Codex scene where Snake is speaking to I think it's not Big Boss. I forgot who he normally speaks to. And he's like, Snake, where are you? And he's like, I'm doing a recon mission. And you're like, oh, is this going to be a Metal Gear game announced for the Wii? And then you realize you see the box on the Super Smash stage, and then he just pops out of the box. It's like, special guest, Solid Snake.
Yeah, that's definitely like the last thing I would have ever expected if I saw that.
Yes.
Like Mario and Solid Snake?
Yeah, it still doesn't fit to this day.
But it's still awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if this counts exactly, but I do appreciate the Marvel vs. Capcom games. I guess you can kind of say they were guests. What?
For real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I just remember, like, just wow, and like, you can play with Spider-Man and, like, the X-Men or whatever, and, Ryu and Ken, and it was just a cool thing to have. I didn't appreciate it as much when it first came out, but as I grew older and realized, like, what these different entities meant, it means a lot for them to be together. I don't know.
It does. For both of you, do you see it, when you think of Marvel vs. Capcom, do you think Marvel's being featured in Capcom or Capcom being featured in Marvel? Like, which way do you see it?
Definitely Marvel and Capcom, just because Capcom already, like, had a long withstanding of Street Fighter games.
Right.
So Marvel, I don't think they had a fight game. Did they have a fight game before then?
Not before Capcom. Not off the top of my head, no.
So I always thought it was, like, Marvel coming into Capcom, joining into this, like, already.
Right, like Marvel games have had fighting games by themselves, but they were developed by Capcom.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish, like, if I could go back in time, I would want to go to that meeting where that decision was made. Where I start listening with Capcom, and one guy is like, hey, you should put them in the same game. Everyone be like, oh, brilliant. I hope that guy got a raise. Like, really, I hope that guy got a boost.
He really should have.
Yeah, better. Actually, woman, because you know what? I don't know who was in that room, and women and men are equal, so I don't know why I said guy. That's sexist. I'm sorry. My bad.
I accept your apology. On the behalf of all women.
All of them.
Because that's how it works.
Thank you so much. I guess it's my turn?
Yes.
Man, okay, you took me, you had the best one, Marvel vs. Capcom, now to think of something.
Sorry.
I think, keeping in theme with this week, with Black Panther, I like to say, best guess would be the people of Black Panther called in the 5th and 6th issues to help him out.
Yes, you should tell us all the people he did pull in.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I'll just list off the name of people. FYI, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. If you don't want to know these people, please skip like 30 seconds.
We'll mark it.
Yeah. So his crew he called in for help was Manifold or Eden. Basically, Manifold is not even technically black. He's Aboriginal from Australia, but Black Panther is like the king of all melanin, so you can call whoever you want. Misty Knight, who comes in from Harlem. Luke Cage, who's also getting a Netflix show, FYI. But he calls in Luke Cage for help, and Storm. So, in one of the comics, you just see these 4 people, these 4, in this case, international, black, powerful people, and they're like, yo, you need help? We're here. What do you need? And like as a guest star in a comic book that started very political, and that was very internal to Wakanda. It's just nice to see Black Panther call into that whole like Pan-African squad.
I'm actually very surprised that I haven't gotten to read the Ultimate yet, but why he didn't call in Blue Marvel, given that they work together on a different team. I would think, especially because part of Blue Marvel's story is being a version of blackness and what that means, and for America, it would have been interesting to pull him in. But I'm curious, maybe there's a reason in the Ultimates why he's not a part of the crew.
He's doing his own thing somewhere else.
He could be doing his own thing, or he could be pulling a Michael Jordan, So,
trying to go into baseball.
You barely heard him say anything about anything going on in American black social context, except for like last month. But he could be just doing that. He could just say, "Hey, I'm busy. I'm watching Netflix." I don't know. I know it's like.
And let's try to think about it for hip hop. I want to talk about the worst feature I've heard in my entire life. It's the most disappointing feature, and it makes me so angry. And in fact, there are two features that come to mind, and they're both Kanye related, but I'll tell you the one that made me the most angry first. When Kanye was doing 808s and Heartbreak, I was okay with the album. I have no problem with the context of the album, what he was doing. And I was like, oh my gosh. So Wayne gets featured in the album, but Wayne is doing the auto-tune singing. He didn't really rap. So it's like, okay, whatever. I don't expect anything from Wayne. And it's not set up that like Wayne is getting the only rapping verse. The person who gets the only rapping verse, this most important guest of the album, is Young Jeezy.
Snowman.
And he ends up on the album on Amazing, which is actually a pretty good beat. And he proceeds to give one of the worst verses I've heard in my life. Talking about salt, sodium on a podium. It was just, oh my god.
You just don't appreciate Jeezy.
It was terrible. Like, it was terrible in the sense that I don't really like Jeezy. And, like, he didn't provide any reason for me to dislike him. But it's like, you had an opportunity to make your verse special because you were one of the only guest rapping verses on this project. And you wasted it and you squandered it. I hate that.
I don't blame you. How about you, Mikhael?
Wait, I have to do the worst hip hop?
No, it doesn't have to be worse.
Be best, worse.
Just an example in hip hop of a guest.
Yeah, the worst example, right?
Good or bad?
Could be good or bad. I just wanted to go at worst.
No, since you said President Marcus.
Okay.
You said President. So, when you said that, I was running through a list of songs where people I thought had the worst feature, or like, what are you doing on this song? And for some reason, Look at Me Now came into my mind with Chris Brown. Right. And it's funny because, again, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest Chris Brown fan, but Look at Me Now is, Chris Brown came out with that in 2011. It's a hip-hop song, writers, like Chris Brown wrote it, Diplo is on it on the beat as a producer, Afrojack is on it, a producer, Nick Van der Wall is a producer, Busta Rhymes is also featured on that song. So it's like, yeah, you know, it's really one of those unique beats you get in hip-hop every few years or every year. And you have Chris Brown, who's skilled at what he does. Busta Rhymes is also skilled at what he does, but it's also featuring Lil Wayne. And no offense to Lil Wayne, he kind of gets blown out of the water in this song because you have Chris Brown doing his rap thing. Busta Rhymes does his speed verse, just kills it. And when it gets to Lil Wayne, it's like, what are you doing here? you need to stop pronouncing words and be a little more coherent. So, to me, like as songs go, as features go, not too much of a fan of that. I wouldn't say it's the worst one in all time, but I came across the song again this week and I was like, Lil Wayne, not today, man, not today.
Is it any day?
That's true. He had me at Tough Like Nigerian here and then lost me like 10 lines after that.
I think that's the Lil Wayne curse. Like, I think if there's anything I could say about Wayne is that there are times where you're like, that was pretty bright, and we've been very not too long from that, you'll be like, what are you doing?
Right, but look, as I mentioned, Lil Wayne is an incoherent Eminem, right? At least at that time. He had like those witty shit every 2 lines, but if you take an entire verse, no common theme whatsoever. None. But this time in 2011, he was doing more of his little wheezy, slurred aspect of his hip hop, and it just doesn't fit because the beat in this case needs to be, when you rap over this type of beat, you need to be a little sharper. So it's just one of those things where musically it didn't fit, at least to me personally. Everyone has their different taste.
Oh.
So I have 2. You mentioned Chris Brown, so it made me immediately think of the All Eyes on You, All Eyes on Me, All Eyes on Us, whatever, with Nicki Minaj, Meek Mill, and Chris Brown. And it's just so awkward because it could be a really good duet with just Meek Mill and Nicki Minaj, because obviously they're a couple they're both rappers. Like, it would have been a good song. But even in the video, like, Chris Brown, like, Meek Mill and Nicki Minaj are, like, all together and stuff. And Chris Brown's, like, in another room in the same house, just, like, singing the chorus. And it's like, why? Like, I get it. They needed someone singing on the chorus. But it was a weird, awkward feature. Like, he is the official third wheel of that song.
I guess like, it should have just been a song about being the third wheel. That would have at least been funny.
Yeah, that would have made sense. That would make sense. Because, yeah, they just locked him in a room somewhere and, like, just sing this part. We'll hear you through the door.
Oh my God. I thought in my head, when he said that, I had Rihanna and Drake singing a song. Mm. And we will have Chris Brown singing as a third.
Oh my God. If we wanted to make it even more awkward, yes, that would be the move.
That would just be super awkward. Because Rihanna would just be being her badass self. Chris Brown would, Drake would be, all touching and emotional. And then Chris Brown would be like,
dancing.
That would be hilarious. That's just me though.
That would be great. The other one is, I can't think of more examples, but I'm consistently surprised that E40 isn't more of a thing now. He's on the All the Way Up remix, and he was on a song with Kanye. I forgot.
I mean, he's on everything. I mean, he was on Lecrae's project earlier this year. It's like, what are you doing here?
He is on everything, and I'm like, how? Like, he's done so many features on good songs and on like popular songs, but for some reason his verses are never memorable. And it's not like they're bad, or just I don't know. I just want to point that out. I hear you, E40, if you're listening to this. I heard your voice, even if you're not getting a due for it. Right? I think we all should give him a collective hug.
Oh my gosh. You're right, he's not bad, and he's technically proficient.
Right, yeah, he's not bad. It's just, I don't know what happened past, like, 2004. He just became...
People don't love him for some reason.
People don't love him. And there's no reason for people not to love him.
Right, like, especially given the landscape of who people choose to love.
Right.
E40 is a lovable person. Like,
right.
He's more lyrically dexterous than us, and he'll still give you the party songs that people want.
Yeah. T-Pain gets love. I feel like he's in that similar...
I think Pain gets more love than 40.
More love. It definitely gets more love. T-Pain?
Yeah, T-Pain gets more love than E40.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's so bad. Oh.
Say
I don't think E40 I'll be even more pissed because you have, like, Easy is getting more love than E40. Like, really?
This is the world we live in.
Getting more love than E40. I'd be like, come on, man.
Yeah.
So, as we said, this is a shorter episode because all of us are pressed for time.
Jeez.
But we do want to end it with our What Question of the Week. We did not get any questions about last week, but we're going to be asking this question. If you can find answers in like a few seconds, you can find them. But in the meanwhile, we'll start answering our What Question, and hopefully you guys can give us an answer. So the next month, we could say your answers on air. But the question is that since we're talking about guests and being featured and so forth, it's like, if you could be a guest, but like a tiny cameo on anything or any show or anything at all, what would you want to be a guest on? And I would say for me, I would probably choose to be a cameo on a Charles Hamilton song. If I could choose to be a guest in anything, I think I would pick that. Because Charles, I've told people, is probably like the most important rapper from my undergrad years. And as much as I don't love his music the same way now, I would feel so special to be a part of anything that he made. Regardless of how it turns out overall. And even just to be like a person who does like an ad-lib for him or whatever. It would be an honor. For me, at least. What about for you, Mikhael?
Does it have to be hip hop or?
No, you can go into nerddom. I know that at one point in time you talked about being in a K-drama, so we've gone in different ideas.
Or Sailor Moon, obviously.
Right.
Oh, wait, being a K-drama? I'll go with that.
Do you have a K-drama in mind?
No, I want to be all of them. I want to be
all of them?
Every K-drama.
You know how, like, you'll be in so many different worlds.
I know, exactly. That'll make it awesome. It'll make no sense, but I'll have one storyline. It'll just make some random sense.
Oh my god. You're gonna be like the Joseon Dynasty one day, and then in a rom-com in 2016. And...
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Makes no sense, but I'll be entertained. So I'll go with that.
You'll have to give a piggyback ride, though, in all of them. Because that's the...
Obviously, of course. I read the fine print, come on.
Well, for me, like I said earlier, it's Sailor Moon. Or a K-drama. Maybe I'll join Mikhael on this journey. I would love to be a Sailor Scout.
We both are in every K-drama, but we don't know each other.
It would kill every stereotype there is about black people.
Exactly. We walk past each other and be like, I feel like I should know you.
But I don't.
Yeah. Oh, well.
So, I hope you guys enjoyed the more condensed... Oh, she found answers.
I found answers.
So tell us the answers that people gave to last week's.
So our last week question was, what's a nerdy thing, it could be an anime, manga, comic book, K-drama, or video game, or hip-hop song that motivates you, since our thing was motivation. So I got a few answers. One person put Captain Logic, but Hajime no Ippo, which I'm planning on watching. It's a boxing anime. It's supposed to be super inspirational, motivational, that I've heard kind of gets people riled up in a Rocky sort of way. And he also put You Guessed It by OG Mako, which I've never heard. We should probably check that out. And another guy, Double D Donald, on Instagram, put One Piece and Naruto, and he names the Water 7 saga era as one of the ones that he really loved.
And you also got something semi-spoiled.
I got a major spoiler, but I'm not going to talk about that.
But you talked about something that was motivating for him from that. Are you not going to acknowledge that comment right now?
No.
Okay. Poor guy. Do you have an answer for that question, Mikhael, that you want to say about like a song or a nerdy thing that kind of inspires you or motivates you?
Wow. I mean, a lot of things, but when you ask that question, the first thing that came to my mind, sadly enough, is the first Pokemon song.
Ooh.
I want to be the very best. Like,
yes.
I'm not someone who listens to songs and like anime and stuff like that. But every time I randomly hear that song, I'm like, yes, I too want to be the best.
That is the perfect answer, because that's so true. That song, always, like, anytime, it's like, I feel like doing something.
It doesn't matter. I could be like fighting a dragon and
in the K-drama.
I still want to be the very best. It doesn't matter. I can be with a Mexican standoff and be like, yes, I still want to be the very best. I stand by it.
I'm very pleased with that answer, especially with my Pokemon hype. And I'll try to talk about Pokemon hype next month. But we're going to bring it to a close. Wait, say that again?
I said it's funny because I don't even play Pokemon. That is my part.
I've been trying to recruit Victoria to get a 2DS this fall because they're like $80.
There's an 80% chance I'll get it.
So I'm trying to convince her. Because the new Pokemon is like changing up everything, you should join us on that, man. It's only $80 to join us.
That doesn't include the games.
It does not, sadly.
That $80 was going to rent. So unless, nah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just be alone. Hopefully, the 80% turns out to be 100%.
Most likely.
But yeah, guess what? When I become the very best, I'll buy it.
Okay.
But you can only be the very best if you buy it.
You know how time this costs 22. Do I buy it and become the very best, or just become the very best and buy it? I'll let you know that.
And on that note, I think we've now capped off what has been a very fun, quick episode of Nerds and Hip Hop.
Definitely.
I just want to let's go quickly over our names. I'm the Wolves Den.
I'm Miss Old School.
And you are?
Oh, it's my thing. I am Mikhael.
And
I didn't name.
Mix.
Firebender. Damn, I need to come up with a name.
Mr. Mix.
Mr. Mix? No, that sounds weird.
We'll figure it out. But in the meanwhile, you should tell people where they can find you in social media.
I don't want to be found. I'm hiding from people right now. You don't know my life. Jeez, I live on the edge. That's life. You can find me on Twitter under Mix Rights, MIKS Rights. Or you can find me doing my photography thing on Instagram at Mix Photos. MIKS Photos. And if you see me in the street, just don't approach me. Just continue walking.
And so, if you want to find myself or Sailor Scout, I'm the Wolves Den 25 on Twitter and Instagram. You are
Miss Old School on everything as well.
And if you want to actually give us an answer to your question about like favorite guest moments in hip hop or worst guest moments in hip hop or nerddom, please send us an email to nerdsonhiphop@gmail.com or tweet at us using the hashtag nerdsonhiphop.
Yep.
Or Instagram us, because that actually worked out pretty well. People actually showed up for that. So if you follow us, you'll see on her page she'll be posting a photo asking the question again. Mm-hmm. And just don't spoil One Piece for her.
Please don't. I'm 3 years behind, but still.
Wow.
Any last things you want to say, Mikhael, to the people?
No, not really. Just continue supporting this podcast. Don't consider me the worst thing to happen in hip hop featuring. And anytime you see Miss Old School, tell her everything that happened in One Piece. Like, when you see it in the public, just like, yo, that's what happened in the latest episode or the last episode.
There are like 800 episodes, alright? I'm almost there.
But
what episode are you on now?
Like 600 and something.
Okay, so, World, anytime you see her, tell her everything that happened at the end of the 600 all the way up to episode 800, alright?
You are the worst.
I mean, pull out a billboard, just like you see on Facebook, just put it on the comment section.
I'm gonna catch up now just to spite you.
I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed being here with us. I hope this was a good use of your time, and thank you again for being our first guest.
Thanks.
No problem. It was an excellent use of my time. I wasn't trying to kill cons or anything.
So, to the people who are listening, sayonara, son. Thank you for listening.
Bye.